Alrighty. I'd like to call the Wednesday, November 1st, 2023 session of the Ridgway Sustainability Advisory Board meeting to order. And nice to see y'all. Deb, did you want to do a roll call at all?
Sure.
Even though we're a couple short still.
Angela?
Yes, here.
Dana?
Here.
Dave?
Here.
Ken?
Here.
JT?
Here.
And Joyce should be joining us shortly. Great.
And same with Terry. I will try to get that first item going without, or give it a preface. So then Terry wanted to jump in and do a brief intro from his side of it. I sent out the straw poll to you guys that we effectively have, thumbs up across the board with Sustainability Advisory Board. We got the thumbs up from Town Council, Preston, moving forward on it. And I guess without going into, you probably have read the papers and gotten the drift that there's been huge pushback even with misinformation on the OFER project. Obviously, we navigated our own here with the athletic fields. RICO, even though the town managers up there effectively identified the locations early on before Terry started doing the heavy lift on it. Now that it's getting closer to it, the town managers are like, we don't know if we love that spot or not. So Terry is doing an uphill battle right now. And obviously, all of us have been spending a lot of time together talking about the Green Street project, microgrids in general. We were all at the conference together, including Dana.
Terry is waiting.
All right.
Thank you.
Man, as soon as he pops up, I'll tell him what I've said so far. Terry, you there? He's got his video off, but
It's like he's there.
audio. Terry, I'm going to assume you're there and listening to us. And
He's muted.
there we go. Can you unmute yourself, Terry?
Yep, just did.
Got it. I know you're multitasking. We hear you. Hey, we jumped into this. I was just giving a little background to these guys about little context for the pushback that you're navigating from basically everywhere, RICO, OFER, and wanted to give a preface to that and explain, not circling the wagons, but the discussion led us to think about really about the messaging and the delivery of all of this, which is also part and parcel of why I wanted to keep it quiet before we just let it trickle into the public. But as of right now, it would be on a combination of Dana's land and on Green Street, but just trying to be really intentional as far as when and how we roll out the messaging. On Monday morning, Terry, Wiley, and I met with Josh Ewing from the Rural Climate Partnership. Josh has a background. He was the point person on for Friends of Cedar Mesa on the Bears Ears preservation. Now he's directing this organization that channels money from big funders to smaller organizations, and even specifically works with electric cooperatives around the rural parts of all of the United States to strategize. And by all accounts, and Terry chime in on this as well, as far as what Josh added to it, that of course, the pushback is universal. It's not unusual. Even though people share the values of renewable energies, the placement of solar panels is inevitably a NIMBY knee-jerk reflex and pushing back on that. So Josh, in 1 hour time, gave us some thoughts. And if anything, and Terry, correct me if it was wrong, if I'm wrong here or off target, but basically it was an affirmation that instead of San Miguel Power doing the full rollout as the company, as the electric company, the co-op, that we roll it out from town. And to some degrees, we had talked about this informally ahead of our conversation with Josh, but more so once we talk to Josh on the communications level, it's probably going to be best if we come up with a real smart, clear strategy, reframing this in a very positive way, echo back to the community that even though they didn't want it on the athletic fields, we should quantify the numbers of people that said they support it, but not necessarily in their backyard there, and not speak to the negative, but amplify it in the positive. Identify the fact that the town's mission and our values hold that we have intentions to develop more and more renewable energies for the community itself, both as part of the CAP or part of the values of the town, part of the CAP, and now the pending resolution for us to pursue net zero. So all of these things are in line with the momentum here. And one of the other take-home messages I got from Josh was, he said, always remember that there's going to be a small percentage of people with huge voices, a la the bad apple phenomena, that sour or poison the well from the get-go. But he said, and it was a good reminder to me that SMPA has their capacities and their skill sets. And then my marching orders, I suppose, politically, is to really take a sober look at the percentages. And if it was 50-50, 50% of the town against 50% of the town, that's a big uphill battle. But if we do identify that we say have 70-80% of the community in support of it, there's always going to be a contingent that's a minority that's loud. But we should feel emboldened by the context and the political climate of what we already have here. And we think we can come up with an elegant solution.
It's my understanding that council is looking at earmarking some monies to create a, just as we did with the athletic park, doing a master plan for Green Street. It's something kind of similar to like a sustainability park. So I think looking at it that way and might be a little easier approach for the public.
It is,
to incorporate a solar grid, microgrid.
Yeah.
So
that's exactly where I was going to say it. It seems like it's going to end up being the town. And I don't know if I said these or not to you guys. This is basically the date on this was originally 2016, 17. The plans for the Green Street Park, and in this iteration, and I'll segue it over to Terry, but basically just his quick and dirty camp cooking placement of the solar panels onto this. But with a much more, but using all of the various values that were identified and the amenities that would be included into this integrated park, and not just the Green Street Park, but even and all to be discussed, but Terry's excitement launched into this becoming a flagship project for us as Sustainability Advisory Board, and potentially being an educational component with permaculture, with xeriscaping, with all of the things that we would want to have as our show, don't tell educational component, fully integrated into a super usable spot. And with that, I'll let Terry segue in and
just real quickly
Yep.
though, is that process would be just as the athletic park master plan was, with all the public meetings, with the different options, with all of that. So I think having that microgrid in there to start with would be the intent for sure.
Could you share those plans?
yeah, I've been holding back because there's been
Angela,
discussion of
can you
various
still hear us?
iterations of it. Deb,
Yes, I
thanks.
can still.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Can I share my screen?
Yes.
All right. And just before you launch in, Terry, I do want to say, and actually, I just even realized in my own language and presentation of that, it even sounded like I was speaking from a bit of a vacuum, like this is going to be our brainchild and our effort, but by all means, it's a town effort. SAB can't throw just an SAB town meeting. It'll be town, same process as the athletic field. But how we roll that out, fortunately, is already in the hands of town, not just SAB. It's been by our suggestion, and with council already discussing and likely earmark some money for doing the study on this, not in the 10-year plan or the 5, but in the present. So take it away, Terry.
Before I go into the details of that subject, just back to one of the things you had discussed about a outward bound communication strategy, something that SMPA is working with, and the visit by Josh Ewing, the fellow that JT brought to the table, is part of this idea. Is we're looking at doing two things. One is a near-term press release highlighting the fact that SMPA was attending this recent Mountain Town 2030 conference along with JT, myself representing town council, and the mayor, and 59 other communities that had elected officials at this conference. And it was a very inspiring conference. But the segue would be that SMPA was supporting all of the communities in the San Juans, and there was, I can rattle off the list, and then discussing the fact that SMPA was invited to give a presentation by DOLA at this conference around the 4 microgrid planning grants that they awarded to us. So that was in a way to begin. We actually at one point put out a press release about the 4 microgrid planning grants, but it wasn't ever picked up by any of the papers. So we're going to try to write a more of a special interest article segueing into this notion of not only the award of the microgrid planning grants, but also what the high level benefits of microgrids could be to the community. And in furtherance of that idea, we're looking at allying with or forming a cohort with NREL, possibly Rocky Mountain Institute, Telluride Foundation. DOLA has agreed to participate, getting a bunch of outside stakeholders to possibly put together a regional summit to educate our elected officials for multiple communities in the region about the value of looking at distributed energy resources in a broad sense, as well as some of the benefits of microgrids in the near-term sense as a transition towards the new energy future that elected officials need to start understanding as it relates to the use of land and land codes. This is going on in San Miguel County. They've got a moratorium on solar. They had a workshop looking at land use regulation. So this is a broader subject that SMPA thinks is needed to educate the public. But per JT's observations from the other day, it's likely something it shouldn't be led by SMPA. It should be led by a bunch of outside organizations that have, quote, street cred in this area and that are interested in spreading this word more regionally, not specifically targeted to a particular community like what we're talking about doing here with the SAB. So with that having been said, let me share a screen real quick.
Terry, on that note too, I want to, even with all of the big hitters like NREL and RMI, all of that, not forgetting that part of the advice we've been getting is out of the gate to make sure that the community members and the stakeholders feel empowered from the get-go.
Absolutely. And that's what this is an attempt to address.
All right.
Hey, Terry, before you go into your presentation, I'm sorry to interrupt. I've had my hand up, but that doesn't work so well from Zoom. I've been asked by Protect Our Winters to write an op-ed or something for the local papers that's related to positivity with what's going on with our energy move towards solar and solar arrays, because they pay very close attention, and Protect Our Winters is a big fan of San Miguel Power Association, and they've asked me to write something, and I'd love to, and I think doing this from different angles is important, like you're saying. I'm going to reach out to you when I'm home next week and get some details on that, so I'm not like stepping on your toes and make sure I have the facts correct. Okay.
No, thank you for bringing that up. That came up yesterday. We had a meeting of I think there was like 15 of us that were debriefing from that conference. And Lindsay, the woman you're talking
Lindsay.
yeah,
Yep.
She mentioned that she's reaching out to you to do that. And
Yeah.
we, at that time, and JT was in the meeting as well, we concluded that it's absolutely necessary that we coordinate these messages so that we're presenting a unified front. on the tone and tenor and the level of detail and so forth. So absolutely. And I'd like to involve JT in that as well, since he's
Great.
involved in this other potentially larger effort for this regional workshop concept.
Absolutely. I'll reach out next week when I'm home.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's see, I had this up. Where did I go with? Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so JT, there's bits and pieces of this have already come out, but the basic concept was that in the recent town council meeting, when resulting from the public comments, I think they had received 115 emails, most of which were in favor of solar for the town, but just not in the athletic park, that athletics ought to be in the athletic park. One of our town councilors agreed with that sentiment prior to the vote, mentioned the word, things like solar ought to be, the sustainable things should be over there on Green Street. And so that germinated this idea that I worked on a couple days after that meeting. In the town council meeting, the town gave a unanimous thumbs up on looking at Green Street as the possible town-owned lot that would be potentially available for the microgrid, like we were looking at the parcel in the original athletic park prior to the athletic park master plan process. So that shifted focus over to Green Street. But then I recall 2 years ago, I had actually presented the idea of putting solar on the Green Street Park to the town council, and they made me aware of a approximately 10-year-old master plan for the Green Street Park, which has been mothballed for many years. The budget for doing something at Green Street Park is in our 10-year capital improvements budget, but there's no monies identified for it. So basically the idea of developing Green Street beyond the existing community garden and the apiary hasn't received any attention, nor is there any budget to do so. But I went back and pulled that document. You can find it on the website, town website. If you search for it, you won't find it any other way, or I can distribute it or JT can distribute it. But in that plan, there's this drawing, which was the culmination of the Green Street Park master plan process, with a number of features in the park, and even at that point, not identifying specifically where the community garden would go, or there was no indication of a community apiary at that point. But the ideals, the goals of the park and what they were trying to accomplish was put into this report. And this is a table from that report talking about sustainability and paths and barbecues and solar lighting and shade structures and educational outreach, and the idea of a community garden was there, a windbreak, permaculture. These were some of the concepts that fed into the culmination of this drawing. So previously, 2 years ago, I had designed a solar system for this portion of Green Street south of the apiary, and I had the engineering already paid for on this. So the idea came to mind that why don't we look at effectively combining the two concepts and making the solar a component of what we would then call the Green Street Sustainability Park, which features a community garden and a community apiary, and now a community solar garden, and also incorporates many of the existing features of the previous plan, like a interpretive trail that might be around the perimeter that could demonstrate sustainable landscaping, demonstrate sustainable water use, have a variety of exhibits of native permaculture and xeriscaping and vegetation, and maybe an exercise circuit. These are just oddball ideas, some of which came from the athletic park process. But a covered park pavilion may be located in the middle that becomes a wildlife and human corridor that breaks the solar array. A place for EV chargers, a parking lot down at the bottom, possibly a composting station where people can bring compost. All things sustainable that the Sustainability Advisory Board can come up with in partnership, and most importantly, with input from all of the various local community stakeholders. So this could be the schools, the local HOAs, the Parks Department, the town, SMPA, any other stakeholder that wishes to participate, whether it be the community garden, certainly the apiary, certainly the people that are interested in having a community composting station, the EV charging group that comes out of Rock, etc. This could potentially be fodder for the SAB, one, to take this on as their flagship embodiment of everything that's sustainable that we're talking about, but it would be an on-the-ground outdoor sustainability education center in the pavilion. You could have bulletin boards and changeable messages. There could be placards along the trail that talk about the Sustainability Advisory Board's net zero goals, about education on residential, commercial solar, about beneficial electrification, about available rebates. These could be placards that could be periodically updated or changed out, but an actual formal weather station right here. So the concept is turn what is currently unused property that is started with the community garden, the apiary, into a full-fledged sustainability park, and turn this into a destination. Make this something that people from outside our region or even within our region would want to come visit Ridgway just to see. Let's go check out the sustainability park and take a 2-hour walk around the interpretive trail and learn something about sustainability. So that's the high level concept. The goal now, if I put on my S&P hat, which one am I wearing? That's my Colorado boy hat. Is
So thinking
I've got permission from the town manager to continue to pursue the details of how solar would fit on this parcel. So next week I have a soils test scheduled. We're going to do core samples, things that would inform the actual mechanical design of the solar array, knowing that depending upon the outcome of this process, that may change, but just get the ball rolling so I can stay on schedule with the milestones that are laid out in the DOLA contract that we have free money for to investigate this. But then turn this whole concept of the sustainability park, implicit with the idea that solar would be some portion of it, turn this over to the SAB to then, help provide guidance to the town to fulfill what we did budget for in our budget workshop, which was $25,000 to hire an independent consultant to facilitate a Green Street Sustainability Park master plan process, almost identical, as Deb mentioned, to the athletic park process, but put this in the hands of the community. Let the community and all of the various stakeholders that want this or that, or a dog park or whatever, have them come together and help, turn the horse into a camel, make it representative of everybody's input, get public buy-in, and then the solar becomes implicit in the process rather than looked at as an adjunct or something that, some sort of this industrial thing that we're plopping down on town property. It would be, I envision a line of evergreens, a visual barrier, a sound barrier. By the way, the sound coming from the highway across the Wolf Ranch right there bounces all through my community. I hear it first thing in the morning. Having the solar system by itself, along with vegetation around it, would act as a sound sink and would absorb a lot of that highway noise. It would eventually be a visual buffer for the potential high density build out that may occur on the Wolf Ranch at some point. The fellow that's building a house right here on this property right now is highly in favor of this concept, and he would be the closest one to it. Needless to say, we're going to get public pushback from a number of people who are going to view this as something less desirable for them. But if we're successful, in the effort of the sustainability park master plan process, all of these questions will be answered and the concerns be incorporated into the plan, so that we're incorporating all of the voices of the various stakeholders. So with that, I'm going to end my presentation, and I think the discussion that I'd like to see is whether or not, one, the SAB finds this something attractive to get behind, embrace, and possibly take the lead as the manifestation of the ethos of the Sustainability Advisory Board, and see where it goes. It may be that we never put solar in here, but right now I have permission to go ahead and continue my investigation of putting solar in there, and I'd like to throw the rest of this over the wall to the SAB.
Terry, before you totally kick out of there, and with Angela here as well, we're even conscious of Terry and I've talked about it, even conscious of the fact that, like, with this pending soil studies, engineering study next week out there, that becomes visible, and those are the kind of presences.
Cat's out of the bag.
So to that point, we realized we wanted to talk to you guys first before just making the decision, reaching out to Christine Lance at Community Gardens, and then also Fred at the apiary, with a nascent explanation of what we're pursuing with the blessing of the town, and based upon the deadlines and budget for the DOLA grants that Terry's working on. So we're kind of in this conundrum, little carts and horses, timing wise. But right now, just to keep things moving forward and for information's sake, having a very strategic direct outreach right now to apiary and gardens.
Well,
And
the apiary has your full support, and the apiary isn't just Fred. We've discussed this, that knowing that no one can get the cat out of the bag because it's still under discussion. But yes, I think the community garden is what you need to pursue. The apiary is fully behind it.
okay, and just to throw that in there too, it didn't come up in any of the things that Terry and I just mentioned, but the components of even in integrating in the permaculture agrivoltaic element of it, elevating some panels, doing pollinator gardens. Terry, I was gonna ask you on the soils test, have them also do the biotic profile, not just the engineering, if possible.
Yeah, let me, I'll throw you the contract that we received from the engineering company.
Is that
That lists the specific scope of it, and I think there's possibilities to add to the scope, just that we may have to find another source of funding for those particular tests.
Got it. I've got that. You sent it to me, so I'll look at that and get back to you on that.
Okay,
But just wanted to make sure that we didn't bow away from the agrivoltaic component in some capacity.
yeah, I didn't mention that, but that, the simplest form of that JT and I talked about is that some percentage of the solar array, if not all of it, would be seeded with local pollinating plants that would help feed the apiary. I mean, that's the simplest form. It could be more exotic than that, depending upon the will of whoever wants to take that on. It could be something the community solar garden says, hey, can we turn this half of the system into a vegetable garden or whatever? I mean, who knows? Then JT had done some initial soil research here to recognize that this is not very easily modifiable terrain for growing anything other than flowers. And to be
Hey,
determined.
Terry, I look forward to hearing from everyone on the committee. But Terry, could you remind us of what the possibilities for underneath of the solar arrays, like just the broad strokes of what is available that we might be able to propose to the town, just so they have the options? And I remember it has to be fenced in, but is the fence like something that the public can go in and out of, or does it have to be locked? What does that look like?
These are all great questions. There's resources out there that I can collate and forward to you about how to evaluate a solar system for possible different types of agrivoltaics, from pollinating flowers all the way to grazing sheep to growing, cucumbers. And there's a lot of documented information that could guide that decision. The issue with the fence is this is a power generating plant, or it will be, as much as we're going to disguise it, make it look like a theme park. But nonetheless, there's live electrical wires, not live, but there are code requirements for fencing it off if any of the wiring is accessible. There's a possibility that if we raise the whole thing up high enough that we can open the fence to public, but nonetheless, it's a high voltage electrical generator, so we have to have, safety is key. If we did not raise it up, if we did not make accommodations for the public, it would effectively have the same fences around the community garden, an 8-foot or 7-foot high field fence, basically a game fence, just to keep, game and humans out. It's obviously not going to be a razor wire fence or anything like that. It's primarily because it is a power generating facility, but
it'll be locked. It would be locked, just like the community garden and the apiary.
Right. So it could be that, if there are specific gardening functions that need to occur inside the array, that it's just, key control, that kind of thing. These are all things that need to come out in this process. I don't have good answers for a lot of these things yet, but you can see all the possibilities. I mean, the possibilities here, I wouldn't say are endless because it's a limited space, but, getting the input from all of these stakeholders on, what should be the type of vegetation? Should they be fruit trees? Should they be evergreens? Should they be deciduous? All of these kinds of nuanced questions we'll put in the hands of the stakeholders in the community. And, SAB could be if you choose, you could be the guiding light in this process, or we just, leave it up to this third-party consultant facilitator to do like they did with the athletic park, or some combination of the two. The one thing that occurred during the athletic park thing that was bothersome to me is the facilitators laid out in those first two options where the solar array would go. without ever consulting me or SMPA. Technically, those weren't good ways to lay out the solar array. So they just did that by carving out space. So we'd have to make
Terry,
sure
that was given to them by Preston.
yes, I understand, but
Yeah.
I'm saying that it wasn't informed as to technically why the solar array should be configured in those ways. So my point is that we have the ability here to start from scratch and work the technical issues in with all the stakeholders from the get-go, rather than it becoming sort of something that everybody had to, you know, in my case, I had to defend, right? Why are we doing this? So, you know, I got put on the spot rather than being able to present it from the ground up. I was having to defend it from the top down. And that just didn't work, right? I mean, it put a lot of people on their heels. It wasn't the correct way to go about, you know, introducing this concept. It gave people who had specific agendas a chance to throw darts at very narrow issues. You know, so, and this is happening, to JT's point, not just here in Ridgway. I have the same thing going on in Ophir, where I had some uninformed resident write a negative op-ed, poisoning the well, talking about EMF and how this is going to fry your gizzards when you walk by it, and all kinds of nonsense.
Yeah.
But, you know, if that's the opinion that gets out in the press, whether it's true or not, people think it and believe it. It's that old anecdote of, when did you stop beating your wife? Well, it's like, I never beaten my wife, but people remember and associate you with beating your wife, even though there was no basis in fact with it, just because somebody mentioned it. So anyway, that's classic vocal minority. You know, it's a malaise that we have to deal with in our society right now. But this is an opportunity to get out in front with a positive start, with, you know, the support of a town committee on sustainability, if SAB gets behind this, and then from there engage all of the stakeholders and make this a source of pride and ownership to the community, you know, getting everybody's questions answered. And to JT's other point, you know, there may be 10 or 15% holdout that never want this, but at some point, you know, majority rules at some point, you know, where that point is, that's what the process will have to play out to determine.
I want to point out that the high school is a big stakeholder here. They own the ditch,
Right. I failed to mention
they
that.
control the pump house there. And
Mhm.
we've had incredible success at the apiary working with the high school, and they're very motivated. They have to do projects.
Right.
And
Right.
so this could be a really, really big boost to the community, because the kids talk to their parents, and, you know, the parents get behind what the kids are doing. And I really want to work on them. And we have some good connections at the apiary that we can help with if you don't.
For example, maybe the kids could, maybe a committee or whatever the right group is from
Yeah.
the high school could be in charge of looking at how to design the outdoor sustainability education center or something. Give them some specific
Exactly.
thing to have ownership over that they can then use as a project. In fact, tongue in cheek, in the town council meeting, you know, I mentioned, well, maybe even the array schools get involved. And of course, Beth is the science teacher. She's a town councilor. She's like, they would love to, but we should keep this Ridgway centric. So probably keep it within our own school district. It will be a countywide feature at some point.
Got it. Two things to your point, Angela, your first question about what to put under there in agrivoltaics.
I remember, JT, I'm going to cut you off. I do remember you provided us with a ton of great information. I just can't remember that right now. And I know you put all the work in.
Let me just answer, let me frame it for you. I think the easiest way to think about it is that adding solar panels to it with cost in mind, the elevated height, the metal, the wiring, the everything, you're basically creating new microclimates. So it actually leads to water conservation underneath, even potential water catchment and things like that. So take that as a grain to run with as a farmer, to know that you'd be working in the shade. And then the two main organizations that have helped develop the statistics on that stuff are Colorado State University and University of Arizona. They're stakeholders in Jack's Solar Garden and participants as well. So I can elaborate on that later. And to the second point, I reached out about the education component and collaborating, trying to get ahead of things. I reached out to Valley and Baskfield specifically to talk about Youth Advisory Committee and how we can create some threads with them. But she's going to set up a conversation with, they used to have an environmental group at the school, but it fizzled. And so I don't know, Jen Donovan, and Valene was gonna coordinate a discussion between SAB, Community Garden, apiary as well, because certainly big stakeholder and also potential interesting lineup, the way the lands are as well. So there's definitely, I think we should all be whiteboarding all of potential collaborators as well, even Voyager and Chamber and all of those people to get, you know, our local organizations speaking on the grassroots level on behalf of this as well. So anyway, I hope that answers your question and frames it a little bit better.
And this, you know, some aspect of this could, in addition to being an outdoor sustainability education center, could be a working laboratory for various things, for composting or for, I mean, pick your subject. You know, it could be that this is, you know, the school treats this like outdoor lab, you know, that comes up with interesting ways to use this park for that purpose.
And Terry, to that point, that's why I went to how to scale composting to the size of your commercial and residential composting programs. And having that as a segue in as we get more into the weeds on this as well. And to one of the universities, they both, if they end up putting in test plots or something like that, again, down the line, those are things that they monitor and put data loggers into, and all of that information becomes public access as well. So those are, you know, those are details we could respond to as we get further into the weeds. And as far
I'd like to see experimentation with reef coral, see if we can regrow the reefs here.
They are artificially grown.
Terry's on painkillers again.
He is.
He did, he has shoulder surgery, you guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
God.
So after all of this talk, what's our next step? What are we?
All right. Well, to go into the discussion, Terry, I mean,
Is that Dana there? I can't see,
Yeah.
but I can hear. Can I add one more factoid that's new to Dana? Something that's come out of this, an unintended consequence of this process, and I mentioned this to Dave today, whereby the original design was to have a large chunk of this microgrid on Dana's property co-located with the chunk of solar on the town property, such that the two solar systems would work in concert with the battery. As a result of being denied access to that spot and possibly relocating the array here on Green Street, we've determined technically that the two solar arrays can still work in concert with the battery system, regardless of the fact that they're located in different places. Now, taking from that an extension, I don't think I've even mentioned this to JT yet, because the solar systems do what's called AC coupling. They connect to the batteries on the AC grid. The AC grid is the grid that would be backed up by the batteries. That means that all solar systems in town, including the one on my house and your house, Angela, would become part of the charging source for this community microgrid. This would truly become a community microgrid. So
That's
whenever,
awesome.
yeah. So whenever the town is isolated, islanded because of an outage, the battery bank picks up the load. The solar systems one at a time start reconnecting to that grid that's formed by the battery bank until the outage is restored. So now take that another step, and this is the new epiphany, and Dana wants to hear this. That also means that the battery does not have to be located next to the solar systems, which means I can locate the battery in San Miguel Power's utility yard and connect to the same circuit. So now the battery can be located in an industrial site. That's the most industrial component of the microgrid. And all of the solar arrays, including Dana's solar array, this one here in Green Street, should it happen, the individual net meter systems, including the one on my house and Angela's house and JT's house, will all connect and provide charging to the battery system in an extended outage.
Wow.
The last piece of this is because of that, I'm having my engineers design as much solar on the San Miguel Power's lot as possible, including the office roofs and maybe a carport or two. It, you know, it is a working yard. We have to be careful with heavy equipment, but I'm going to put as much solar in San Miguel's yard as possible along with the battery system. That's a new design concept that's so innovative. When I was talking to the engineer about it, should it all work, that we think it would make great fodder for a white paper that would give us an invitation to a conference in Hawaii where we can go drink little umbrella drinks.
I love your ambitions.
Terry, does that mean that the battery has to be humongous?
Well, the battery was going to be, you know, sized the same regardless, but it, you know, it's, I don't know exact the footprint of it yet because we haven't gotten that far, but it's at one point, The load is 1.4 megawatts for 4 hours, which is about an 8 megawatt hour battery bank. It's going to be the size of a shipping container probably on a pad, but it'll be outdoor oriented. But the utility yard is a perfect place for it. You were concerned about noise. It'll be
Yeah.
over there. There won't be any noise on your property from it.
Awesome.
There won't be any fire hazard. We're already an industrial site. We already have a a chain link fence around it, or it's already level. It's already gravel. We'd have to put in a pad. And then it's right there for us to monitor and manage right there in our own utility yard. Right next to our generator. So anyway, that's kind of interesting news. Nobody knows about that yet. You guys first to hear about it? Other than Dave. I talked to Dave earlier today about
It's awesome.
That's exciting.
it. So it would truly, last point, truly become a community microgrid, meaning the solar arrays are dispersed all over the town and the batteries in a utility yard, and the whole community is participating in the resiliency that's afforded by the battery bank.
And the infrastructure is already in.
It's like, so the point of this is the unintended consequence of losing access to the athletic park created this idea. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of it. There wouldn't have been any reason to think of it doing it this way. And so the domino effect, so one of the takeaways we got out of the Mountain 2030 conference was the concept of reframing an argument. So this is a classic example of how to reframe the situation, both with the idea of the sustainability park, and now as a result of that, the unintended consequences, I could engineer the whole system differently and get the most industrial component into a utility yard, which turns SMPA now into a partner in this as well as just the developer. The end. That's all I have.
Amazing.
Wow.
Yeah,
On,
incredible.
on that end, from Terry to Dana, in terms of the question of what's next, I think whether we want to do it today or identify a workshop time, work session for us to take this and take the Green Street Sustainability Park concept on this paper, this first draft of it, and as sustainability group, workshop it to get it to the next level, to really identify the values, play it, so that we have something that we can roll
Is
out.
this an article for the paper?
So,
That's depends on how that's the communication side of it and how we want to approach that as well.
I think we have,
And reaching out to the other stakeholders, the most obvious.
and I
ones
think
really
it would
is-
have to go through the master planning process.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
So it wouldn't be something we could just throw out to the public
Right,
that
right,
way.
right.
Yeah.
It would have to go through that process.
I think, I'd like to back up a little bit, and I think this concept, Green Street, I love it. I think it's brilliant. I liked the athletic park concept. I think we have a PR problem.
Yeah,
I think there's definitely, like you said, Terry, there's, the 10% of the shouters that will poison the well. And we have to counter it with some kind of professional PR. I don't think any of us have PR experience.
and on that point, and the guy I mentioned, Josh Ewing, that I brought in, that's what he does.
That's, okay.
This is the Rural
Okay.
Climate Partnership, and the reason I snatched him out of the air and dragged him in on his vacation is because that's what he does.
Where does he live?
He lives in Bluff, Utah right now, and Josh is a dear friend of mine. I worked with him on the Bears Ears campaign for a decade.
Uh-huh.
Josh is brilliant. Brought him in, we had a roundtable discussion on Monday morning, and Terry, the upshot that I got from Josh afterwards, SMPA should have never been the organization. You guys do your engineering, you do the work, the technical work. It needs, a community needs to believe that they were the ones that birthed this idea. And from a communication side, because as soon as you send somebody out to do engineering, to dig a pit or do something else, all of a sudden the community in its territorial ways believes that they've been disempowered from the get-go. And so that's why we're in a cumbersome way trying to keep the cat from getting out of the bag, at least in terms of broad stroke details, and especially the finer details, because before we do that, we want to have a really clear understanding, a reframed narrative, a positive narrative. So how I communicate tonight when I reach out to Christine Lance, sounds like I don't have to reach out, or don't have to reach out to the apiary right now. But right now, really strategically, and fortunately, even Terry reached out to the plane dealer after Daniel was present at the town council meeting when the town council gave thumbs up to dedicate some money to go forward on this. Terry reached out and said, we're dealing with some PR issues and we'd like to, could you do this us a favor, which is a favor, journalists don't have to, it's a public meeting, just as this is, but until we have more details, can you hold off? He asked Aaron to do that so that we could have these conversations so that we can figure out how, because we do know that the cat's out of the bag. Terry's even received a letter from one of Dave's neighbors, Chris Hawkins. I think I can say that publicly, saying that there's likely going to be some pushback on the county part of the proposal on Dana's land for visual impacts and devaluations of lands and all of these others. So the fact that, yes, in part the cat is out of the bag, but right now to figure out how to elegantly have a soft touch in the rollout of this with all of us being completely clear on where this is at, and from the get-go, giving the community a sense of empowerment that this is growing out of a collaboration between stakeholders and town land.
I think what Terry just said about how everyone that has a solar installation on their roof, myself included, everyone in town is gonna be included in this, that's already got a solar system on their roof. And that's
Everybody else.
and anybody else that does that. And that's a big carrot.
And we have to shine a light on the positive carrots. And
Can we, it seems like steps that we need to do right now are, Terry proposed that the Sustainability Advisory Board gets behind adopting the concept of the Sustainability Park at Green Street. And so if we adopt that as a committee now, then it seems like we need to understand the process and the funding to get the third party in to conduct a master plan. We have the PR person that we know that's important, that probably should come before the master planning process. But there's like these steps, rather than getting into the little weeds, we need to do we even have the money? Is the town going to pay for the master planner to come and facilitate that? Does the town going to support money for a PR campaign to bring someone in to advise us how to do that, or to do it themselves?
I can answer some of that. So the town did, in our budget workshop, which was, I think, last Saturday, it's all a blur anymore. They did authorize $25,000 be put in the 2024 budget to hire a master plan facilitation consultant.
Okay, thank you. I missed that.
SAB could have some influence over who that is and what the choices of those consultants are. You may choose not to use the one that did the athletic park. JT may have some contacts with other firms that might take this on.
That'll all go out to bid.
that has to be a
Yeah,
request
it has
for
to go out to
proposals.
bid,
Yeah.
yeah.
The other piece, I'm sorry, what was the other thing you?
So there's the facilitator for the
Right.
master planning, but then there's also the PR advice as to how, because that also is going to cost money.
And that's also on what I wanted to comment. One thing that JT proposed, or maybe I did, or we both did, I can't remember which, was whether or not the SAB has the ability to have its own budget. And the answer was no, that we're a committee, you're a committee, and that whereas we can request line item expenditures like to pay for a PR campaign, it has to be funded by the town through a direct request. So that's not to say that there couldn't be a budget for a PR campaign, but the SAB doesn't have spending authority. They have request authority, and then the town council would have to approve that override. Or at this point, maybe that's a great point, JT. The budget process just went through its first round. We have one more round before it goes in front of council for approval. So we could add a budget for
That was what I was gonna
I
say.
think we did have a
Never
set
had
of,
time for that.
I already drafted a letter to that effect
There you
to council. That'll go to you guys as soon as I conclude my ask to a chair.
So I know that Dave's had his hand up for a while.
Yeah, let Dave chime in.
okay. I had one last quick comment.
As you know, I've been long-term kind of opposed to the Green Street location, although I want solar in town. I love what y'all are coming up with as far as the sustainability part. I like your idea that Terry is not the driver. Somebody else has to be the driver and comes to Terry and says, advises on the solar piece of this. Terry can help us in the background, but he can't be the driver. I think we need to get a better map of the Green Street Park area so that we know how much space there is and, you know, what's a really good map of that. And then we can go to Terry and say, what sort of footprint are you looking at taking so that we can look at what is left? And then, you know, we can start talking about how to make this into a green street park.
To part of the engineering in the soil is not just in terms of the structure of holding, but it's to determine the give and take on the footprint itself. That's next Tuesday.
So that will be a map of
That's
the,
part of the process. Is
Excellent.
that accurate, Terry? To say,
Yeah.
get
That-
information on the
The
capacity?
soil test will inform lots of things, once we have a soil test. Yes, so, you know, I think it's gonna end up, to Dave's point, being an iterative process. It could be that, you know, the master plan folks start querying, you know, get a list like this list that was earlier in this previous, well, I stopped sharing, but get a list of concerns and things that people want to put into it, do an initial layout, you know, knowing that we're trying to reserve as much space as possible for the solar, but incorporating all these ideas. And then we go and we fit solar into the available space, and then we iterate back and forth until, you know, come up with the final solution that's agreeable by the majority of town folk in the voting process, in the survey that they, similar to the process with Athletic Park, they came up with a couple designs, they surveyed people, they iterated on the design, they surveyed people, they iterated on the design, they got emails. I foresee that process, you know, altering the space and shape of the solar array several times during the course of the process. So I'm not going to be naive to that.
With the community.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, you even have to ask the kids, what do you guys want to see? You have to ask the older folks, what do you want to see there? So across the entire demographic, this should be led by a capable design firm.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think as we start playing with this, there's some of us that probably have inroads, just like Angela can reach out to the apiary community. You know, I can certainly reach out to the garden.
Oh, good.
You know, my wife's the treasurer of the garden, and, you know.
Yeah, I know Chris Lance real well.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we can work with them. We can go meet with them.
I'm thinking they should be at our workshop.
For sure, but actually to this point, the next Tuesday, this coming Tuesday is the engineering Lambert coming to do the work out there. And even before they show up in their big truck to do pits, we wanted to present this tonight because I was gonna reach out to Christine Lance tonight. And Angela sounds like she's already in conversation, you know, and has thumbs up from the apiary, but there are specific details and non-specific, you know, the malleability of all this and the iterative process of it. But to let them know so that community garden can let all of the stakeholders know that town has given the blessing to continue on the timeline for SMPA to do their soil tests.
Yeah, we're just gonna have to be, because I know that the garden is very negative right now, so we're gonna have to approach it carefully.
Why?
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, why?
I think they've just, you know, felt like Green Street should be a park for the people and the communities in that area. And so I think we're gonna have to help them understand the pluses of what we have here in mind.
Well,
Yeah.
I think more than just understand the pluses, that they become a partner in the process and they help with the xeriscaping and the, sustainable landscaping, sustainable water use. In other words, they participate in forming this, creating.
Yes.
That's what,
Gary, I think we all agree on that, and that's a natural partnership.
Yeah.
But to be very clear, even when I came back, going on 2 years ago, like I said a couple times, came back from my excitement for Jack's Solar Garden and agrivoltaic and the things that I learned there. When I shared that excitement with Agnieszka and Christine Lance, I was surprised that I had been presumptive, that they'd be in full support. And truth is, they were not at all, and not immediately so. And I think in that time that's festered, to Dave's point, there's some negativity, and to be really understand that.
no, it's
And see it there. And so without getting out over the tip of our skis with all of the other components, yes, those are saleable things to get them excited as well. But I think right now we do have to have a soft touch, and it's less technical information.
Can I just want, Terry, have you seen the solar panels that are see-through and they collect from below and above?
they're called bifacial, and they're the ones that we used at the Telluride Community Solar Garden. They're much
But
more
they're
efficient.
almost like a porch or like a gazebo. I mean,
Right.
that
Like a
would
pergola.
be
Yeah.
more accommodating to people that want to keep that a natural looking park.
Even being considered on top of Space to Create right now.
You know, good luck. I'm trying to get it on, but that
There-
might be, it's not quite as solar array looking as,
Well, we could look at, we're going to look at using those on your array as well. They're the ones that are being installed on the Telluride school too, bifacial, because they generate power from the backside. So if you have a white roof, you're reflecting all that light that comes through and around, including snow, and it increases the efficiency of the solar array. Can you see my screen, by the way? So this was based on the old anecdote that a horse was a committee design, excuse me, a camel is a committee, a camel is a horse designed by a committee. And this is the result of the athletic town process right here.
well,
That's
it'll hold a lot
what
of
this park's gonna be.
limousine.
The apiary can definitely help with the community garden. We have a couple of folks, Fred and Judy and Tara, I believe, are involved in the community garden. So we could definitely work the soft touch in as well.
And I
Terry,
think-
I have a technical question, and I'm sure this has already been asked and answered. Why can't we use people's houses for solar arrays that don't connect to their house, but that go directly into the power grid? Why can't we give everyone on Green Street a solar array for their house and use space like that?
Well, the question is who's we and who pays for that?
Well, like these grants, why wouldn't
Right.
grants pay for something
Well,
like that?
so
Is it a
the-
liability or?
The planning grant is just to go through this process to see what makes the most economic sense. I mean, if you want a greater presentation, I have a slide on what's involved. I could show it real quick, actually, if you want. What's involved with a go, no-go decision if SMPA were to develop this. And ultimately, what it boils down to is the cost of building the solar array with all of the costs involved, whether it means land lease costs, whether it's the raising the structure, whether it's an inexpensive structure, et cetera, minus the grants that are available to buy that cost down, divided by the total energy output of the array equals the cents per kilowatt hour, which has to be compared against what we spend to purchase dirty coal from Tri-State. If the total cost of this project pencils out to where it's less expensive than what we pay Tri-State, then the San Miguel San Miguel Power Board of Directors will approve going forward and borrowing money and developing the project. So anything that adds cost to the project would sink it if it becomes non-competitive with the alternative. Putting solar on people's houses is usually done by people themselves because they get the direct benefit. They get the net metering, just like you did, like I did, like JT did, like Dave has. So that's a different thing. And that's not that was never envisioned as part of a community solar garden. I'm going to stretch the definition to incorporate everybody's solar as input to this when it's in an outage mode. And that'll give everybody financially, you'll still be getting net metering. So the energy you put through into the system, even during an outage, you're still going to get your financial credit for, but now you're helping to recharge the battery to extend how long the town can go without power. So it gives you an indirect way to participate.
I
Terry,
guess what I'm.
That's not, yeah, I was gonna say Angela's question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you didn't answer her question.
Yeah, I'm looking at, I guess the question is real estate, like real estate where we put these things. So these,
Okay.
if we put a solar panel on every house on Green Street as part of an experimental thing that didn't put them net metering their house, it was a direct
No, I understand.
cable, just like that goes into, like, is that even
We'd have to lease,
possible?
we'd be leasing rooftop space on private residences with all the liability and insurance
I see.
requirements
Okay.
associated with it. It would be
Parking
Fair
lots
enough. I
would
don't
be
want to
better
spin
than
out
that.
on some
Yeah.
unfeasible.
And one of the
Parking
other parameters too I mean, right now SMPA can only use 5% renewables in their contract with Tri-State, right? So even this microgrid project is actually gonna force the hand and force a conversation and the renegotiation of their contract with Tri-State, because these microgrids would take it above that contractual 5%. Certainly, what Terry just spoke to, I had the question early on, could we duplicate the same amount of energy by looking at all the naked roofs in Ridgway and use the same available resources out there to purchase and place grid tie systems onto every house? But no, that doesn't, between the liability, the individual separated locations, it
and no
makes
economies of scale. Yeah.
Understood.
you can't scale it. So yeah, I mean, even to even bypass the notion, I mean, if we convinced everybody in town to put solar on their roofs,
We wouldn't need this.
awesome.
Yeah.
But that's still a contractual
This is most.
juggernaut as well. So does that answer it, Angela?
Yeah, I didn't want to spin off on a tangent. I was just, yep.
These
I
are
figured
great-
it had already been answered.
all great thoughts. Dave also had a suggestion that we're going to follow up on. I won't go into detail about it now, but how this manifests in terms of providing direct benefits to Ridgway residents is something that's going to come out after we've done the fiscal analysis to see what sort of room there is in order to give away power. One potential avenue that we're looking at here is we can get a 10% federal grant to discount the total cost of the system if we allocate 50% of the combined solar arrays to low to middle income giveaway, which we've done at our IQ system. The IQ system in Norway, we give the energy away to low middle income people. And who's paying for that? You and I, the people of San Miguel Power, are paying for that. That came out of the Green Fund initially, but there's some contribution by SMPA in total. So that would reduce the amount of energy, which again is the denominator in the calculus to see if this will pencil out. So we've got a lot of things that we're going to explore once we have a site to work with and we can design it and cost it, and then use that cost to figure out all of these interesting out of the box thinking ideas on how to monetize it locally.
Which puts us into a tough position in terms of communication, because the natural first questions that come out of the stakeholders and the consumers of and members of SMPA is, what is the benefit to us? And so we can't fully answer that yet. So hence the different steps that we have to set in motion so we can even begin to answer those.
And that's to Dola's credit, that's what they're funding with this grant, is for us to go through the process of answering those questions.
Okay.
And what's the process for I'm sorry if I'm interrupting. I can't see on my little screen here. What's the process again for the timeline for the funding, proposing to the town and then actually getting the funding in terms of like when we'd be able to start a communications campaign?
So it depends upon if you're talking about the funding of the solar system or the funding of the or the park process or the
park process. The park process.
The master plan process is going to be in the 2024 budget. Funds will be available January 1st, a couple months from now.
And then JT was going to write a letter or has written a letter for additional funds for the PR. Would that also be available if it passes by town council in January?
They could
That's-
potentially accelerate that if JT thinks it's worth trying to do a 2023 budget override for that amount. There's money available, I'm sure, but that's up. I think that's the next step for the SAB is you guys as a committee determine what is this rollout strategy? What's your communication strategy? What's the timing of this? And that's where I'm hoping to take a back seat now and let you guys figure out how to lead this horse to water.
You want me to hit the eject button, Terry? You ready?
Well,
No.
I'm
No,
hoping.
We're
so
not ready.
After next week, Terry, you're gonna have a better map. These people are gonna give us a actual map of the Green Street area.
I've asked my engineering company to do a better job of illustrating what I tried to illustrate one night over a couple beers.
Because if we could have something to scale, I mean, I think it would be good for us to get together. We can have another meeting off cycle and we can sit down and take a look at it. I'm a little concerned with coming out too early with the PR right now. I think we need to do some work and I mean, there's no rush in getting this out because if we get it out too early, then there's all sorts of false stuff and we can't answer the questions.
I agree with that,
Yeah.
but I think it's not too early to start
That's
getting
right.
some RFPs out there for PR firms. Request for proposal.
Sure.
So-
Yeah, I agree with Dave as well.
I think
But
that's,
the funding is on a cycle and it's the opportune time to
Right.
propose it to town council, so we can't miss that window.
the point we're at right now is SMPA has led the charge on that, and Terry in his dual jobs, wearing both hats. SAB getting our feet, trying to figure out how to move forward. SMP's been the engine, SMPA has been the engine on this, and right now, we're really at that crossroads where it's not just we go to a Y, but we actually separate a little bit and run in parallel. So as Terry signs off, it's up to us then to have this conversation and determine what are our priorities in terms of how do we navigate and timeline the PR? How do we pursue that with town, because it's really
And I think
town?
that's something that's gonna have to be addressed, that they'll need, Preston will need to be involved in that as well.
I think we need to come up with some bullet points here
Sure.
for that
No,
conversation.
No, I agree, yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about is the committee, because we're here to advise
Yes,
and
yes.
recommend.
Absolutely. Because I think, if you're thinking of doing something in this calendar year, 2023, I'm not sure that that's really feasible.
No, I think
think
that's our internal discussion here.
That's
I
our
think
time
we-
to talk. That's our
Okay,
time to
oh, I thought
meet,
you
our
were
time to
talking
talk.
about getting funding, additional funding for this year.
No. I'm talking about the letter that I have in the works is to go to the next workshop with council to say that we've already potentially earmarked 25,000. I also would like to think about
For
within
PR.
that, whether it's in that for a request for proposals from a design firm, or to use part of that specifically on the PR front of it right now. Because in some ways, we're already digging ourselves out of a hole because the cat is somewhat out of the bag. And from a communication side of it, as I said, SMPA probably in the grand scheme of what's happening universally across the United States, when a cooperative rolls out a project, it tends to get immediate pushback because the perceptions of the organization of even a progressive cooperative like San Miguel Power is perceived as one and the same as Tri-State or as Excel, and people don't have that literacy to understand that. And so even the pushback in a place like Ophir is that the company, the man, is coming down with this idea, and it sets up a controversial dynamic from the get-go. We're at a spot right now where we have an opportunity to massage that communication, develop some relationships early on, before we move on into iterations in future calendar years.
Yeah.
So it does sound as though you're wanting to do soft touch, as you call it, with the community garden, which is next week, correct? That you're having these testings done.
We're
So
gonna,
prior to that,
I
and
mean,
then you're wanting to get
tomorrow.
together and have.
why
that's
do you
tomorrow?
need to even notify the community garden about these testing?
You don't.
it's a valid
No,
question.
you guys
Community
are
garden is
discussing
closed
that.
for the winter, all
Right.
right? They are not walking over that spot.
Yep.
Do your testing You know, I think we've got several months before we ought to talk about any PR here. I think we need to sit down and kind of develop it. We need to know what the boundaries are. We need to be able to answer
We
the
need to
questions.
go out there and look at it.
Yeah, what's Terry looking at? How big is the area around this? Then we can talk about what do we put in the area around it? You know, what's the solar gonna take? Then we can start talking with others about it and we can start educating people. But right now, it's too early. People are gonna ask us a whole lot of questions and we can't answer them.
Well, some of those are details of what the master plan would illuminate, right?
Yeah.
But it's hard to even do a soft touch right now without a little bit more information, I think.
I guess what I was trying to scuttle before it happens is a truck parked on, and maybe I'm taking too much of a hyperbolic approach on it, but having an engineering truck parked out there taking samples and them.
It'll be a backhoe.
And a backhoe and doing
No,
testing.
actually, it's not. It's gonna be a simple auger, a 2-inch auger.
Oh, just an auger, good.
I don't,
Core samples.
I'm not worried about it.
Okay,
I don't really,
Yeah, that doesn't bother me.
The community garden has a particular set of land that's theirs, and that's their responsibility. And yeah, they can be a stakeholder in this, but they shouldn't be considered someone who has to be informed that the town's investigating soil in a different part of the park. And I'm all about Dave's waiting for the right time for PR. And, you know, I several meetings ago, I suggested that we have a facilitator for our little group, which I think this would be a perfect thing for someone who's doesn't have a voice on this committee to come in and help guide us through our process, how we do this, because I think that, you know, I think that would be beneficial to this group, is to have someone, and that perhaps could be something that we request funding for, is to have a clear facilitator to guide us through the process, because we all are biased and we have our set roles, how we're functioning as a group, and not everybody talks as much as other people do. And I just think it might behoove us to have an outside facilitator guide us through this process, which could create a model for our future processes.
and to that point, Angela, I think we're all, you know, going through and trying to tease apart the morass that is bureaucracy. I didn't even know until talking to Julia, who is the point person at DOLA that works with Terry, that she is readily available for facilitating communication tactics, ways to, and not even knowing where my resources were available to me, who they are, who actually does it in duplicate. So to your point, I totally agree. That's why I brought Josh Ewing in. That's why I now know that DOLA has capacity to not just provide us funding, but also guidance. They sent us comps on the Red Feather Lakes project and how they went about introducing it to the community and going through its iterative process and how to get it built, which is done. So case studies like that weren't even on my radar. So we're all learning this organism and trying to find its point and its direction. So I feel less anxiety now than I did 6 months ago, and way less anxiety than a year ago when this first started out, because I'm starting to identify in a Venn diagram kind of way that we actually do have a lot of positive resources to figure out how to navigate forward. So I concur that we do need that help. We don't have that internal capacity.
Yeah, great. Okay, I was waiting for you to say that. That's great. So
To the timing of an RFP for a PR thing, Dave, I agree with you. We gotta, we don't wanna blow, go public and, go nationwide with this right away. But I know how the process works as far as sending out an RFP. We have to make a request to council for whatever the winning proposal is for that amount of money, and it has to happen pretty soon, is how I understand it. Now, is that correct?
that's next year, right?
Well, that would be 2024.
Right, yeah.
It'd be
But
in process.
it could be, yeah, it could, you guys, it could be the RFP could go out as quick as the first month in 2024, if that's
But
what's
would
decided.
there be funds to pay for the PR if we don't know how much it's gonna cost?
Well, you'd have to put a request into the budget as what JT is going to do.
Right,
If that's approved, your council approves for PR, and it sounds like they've already earmarked money for $25,000 for an
Right.
RFP,
right.
then, I mean, that can all take place as of January 1st, the budget goes into effect.
Right.
So, yeah.
So but my point is, we won't have a proposal to base our request on. If we wait to ask for, RFPs, we send out an RFP,
Well, we've got 25,000,
but
right?
that's just for planning. That's just for design and planning. It doesn't include PR.
Well, we don't want to do the
Right, but
PR
Jay-
till after.
That's what I was
planning.
trying-
Well, we don't have to do
That's what
the PR.
JT is.
You don't have to do it once. We
Right.
can do it down, in the
Right.
spring,
Right.
but we have to have the money for it.
That 25,000 is, right now is.
Can I have to go. I would like to add one other point of discussion that you guys can talk about. In the budget retreat, I also propose that the town consider earmarking the use of the San Miguel Power franchise fee that the town collects. So the town collects approximately $60,000 a year as a franchise fee that currently just goes into the general fund and has no earmarked purpose. The towns of Mountain Village and Telluride use their franchise fee specifically to fund sustainability initiatives. So my proposal for consideration, and I think you guys ought to discuss whether you want to get behind it and support it, is taking the $60,000 a year franchise fee money and using that as a source of funding for two things. One, things like this, like the monies that you're requesting for educational workshops or outreach or PR, but also possibly coming up with, and Dave will love this, a town offered rebate for accelerating people's choice of going all electric ready to all electric. What if the town were to give out $1,000 rebate if you were to skip going all electric ready and go right to all electric new construction? This could be a source of funding that the town could use to provide those rebates, those incentives, basically helping people, get over the all electric ready and just go right to all electric, and they get $1,000 from the town, in addition to all the rebates they'll get from SMPA. Anyway, I'll leave it at that. But the ask is that you guys consider getting behind having that franchise fee earmarked for sustainability purposes.
Terry, I'd like to make a motion that we earmark that sustainability, fund those dollars for
The franchise
sustainability,
fee.
the franchise fee for sustainability purposes.
I'll second it.
We have a second.
In favor.
Any further discussion?
I would like to add on that Dave writes a letter on behalf of SAB that we get to review, that goes to council, to encourage council to follow through on that.
Okay.
I didn't hear a verbal aye. for
Aye.
Roland.
Aye.
Aye.
Well, that was the easiest victory of the night. Boy.
So before,
Gary, thanks for all your work.
Hang
Really,
on, Angela. Angela, hang on a second.
trying to understand what your question was. I'm not sure I understand what you're
If-
asking. So the funds, any funds that are approved in the budget that is being considered right now
Uh-huh,
are for 2024, are available in
Exactly.
2024.
exactly. And that, there's one more workshop and then it gets voted on. And if the $25,000 that's in place or is being talked about right now and probably will be approved, that's just for the planning. That's just for,
Right.
that doesn't include PR.
No,
PR is
but-
probably another.
but
That's the
Yeah.
letter I was speaking to is, that's what I'm saying. We totally, this was on the table as we're prioritizing things from 10-year to 5-year to next year. And that's all the way now up into 2024. That money is just a general planning fund right now. My letter is to encourage either a designation of a portion of that towards PR,
Okay,
or if not, to find out from Preston and from council whether we should ask for a specific amount
okay.
dealing with a town project, which is the Green Street project, just like,
That
money
addresses
was-
my concern because I know how things work and if we wait until spring to, now we need to do RFPs for PR and the ship has sailed.
And Dave, to your
So-
point, I completely agree that we need a lot more facts. And I
Yes.
definitely want to follow
Yes.
a process of ready, aim, fire
Right.
in that order. But I also know that we're already getting letters because the cat is out of the bag and trying to specifically figure out what to answer and what not to answer at this point.
I'd be very vague right now, but yeah.
I think the easy answer right now, as I've been chewing on this, is town has agreed to consider the possibility of integrating a solar power microgrid into a previously, long time ago conceived use of that land, a consideration.
Right.
And that's how far we are down the road. And we're doing our homework at SAB. SMPA is doing their homework and their pursuit. And as we gain answers, you'll be the first to know.
Great.
Could I add also, JT, in that same mini narrative that you just laid out, that the result of the town considering solar in this previously conceived of master plan would result in a new concept called the Green Street Sustainability Park. Make sure that that's part of the soft rollout, because I think that's the selling point. It's not about placing an industrial solar system on a park. It's about turning, combining the features of all of these things into a unique feature called the sustainability park. So I think that's
Even to
important.
that point, even to that point, though, I want to be to the soft touch point of it. I think conceptually and Sustainability Advisory Board championing this project and being the front part of it, even still, we want everybody to even have, and this sounds like a consensus Montessori class in a sandbox, but we really do have to think about, we don't want to get any farther ahead than the community believes that they're not included.
Right.
Even in the naming of this, what's the Buddhist saying? It's easy to find enlightenment in a cave. All of us are still in a cave, right? And we have a lot of ideas and we're developing these, but even to roll out the nascent idea to make the stakeholders believe that and earnestly and authentically believe they are part of creating this, that's the nexus of that's the essence of a community garden, right? So we really have to be cautious. We can't, to the same point of coming back from Jack's Solar Garden, being enthusiastic, you being enthusiastic by the carrots and the monies that are out there, we have to, and I'm gonna keep being a squeaky wheel on this, we have to really make people feel like have ownership from the get-go.
So.
But as a committee, we should discuss it. So that's a great perspective. Terry shared his, and now we should hear Kenny's and Dana's and Dave's and anyone else that's on Zoom.
Thank you, folks. I'm going to let you continue making the sausage. I've got to go.
Thanks so much, Terry.
Thanks, Terry.
Thanks,
Well,
Terry.
All right.
Amazing.
So for the December meeting, should we devote the December meeting to trying to flesh out these park ideas? Does that make sense to everybody?
JT suggested a workshop. and
We
I-
could do
I
that.
Well, we
think,
need a map for sure.
well, I think once we get a plat from
Right.
Lambert, and are they doing a survey as well?
Terry just sent me the contract that they signed with him
It's probably
today.
been surveyed,
Been
but-
surveyed, but I haven't looked into what they've agreed to do. They're going to do engineering studies and I haven't read the whole
Right.
contract. But in terms of getting that information, I mean, I just have to take 2 minutes and read it, right? So I can't answer that exactly.
Can I make a suggestion? So this was something I wanted to talk with you about anyway, but our December 6th meeting may have to be moved because I will not be in town. And I don't know that Preston can cover that, but we could possibly do a work session on the last week in November and then reschedule our December meeting a little farther into the month.
So like Wednesday night, the 29th or something like that?
I'll be out of town, but I
I'll
can,
be up.
What's that?
I'll be out of town as well. Dana and I are both out of town.
Out of town, okay.
Should we do a doodle poll out
How
then?
about we did it earlier, like the
How about-
27th or
That's Monday, the 27th.
Monday, that's,
the
Oh, yeah,
other town Monday?
Still out of town.
That's me.
Yeah.
I'm leaving after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Why do we have to go so far out? We're in the middle of it right now. Why don't we just
well, it might
jump
take some
in?
time for Lambert to
Oh,
produce,
right, right, the map.
documents.
Yeah, let's get them out.
Well, why don't we wait for that?
I
instead
don't
of-
think we have to hinge on everything. Not knowing what's in that contract, I don't think we have to hinge our scheduling time to do a workshop on this stuff. I think there's enough information available with zoning maps and surveys, plat maps here, that we at least have some semblance, and I don't even know if that's the most important part of it.
So let me just ask,
We
let's,
should all
I
go
mean,
there.
we can schedule it, I'm available any time other than, of course, next week, because it's council, but we could, if you guys have time available, the week of the 13th.
Yeah.
When is Thanksgiving?
It's the 23rd.
Oh, it's the 20th, okay. Week of the 13th, the 20th or 21st, I don't think we want to do the 22nd.
Nothing in front of Thanksgiving.
No.
Nothing in front of Thanksgiving, so we have the week of
Sure.
the 13th.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Is
14th,
14th is good with me.
Tuesday.
15th is not good for me.
Angela? Are you-
That doesn't work, but that's okay.
The 14th is DHM master plan meeting.
Let me just look here, yeah. We can't, yeah, no, the 13th is, they moved it,
They moved it
yes,
from the 14th to the 13th?
yep. They did.
Okay, so the
I
14th,
won't be here on that day either.
oh.
The 16th is council budget workshop on the 16th. I leave the 17th.
so the
15th,
the 14th?
14th or 15th are both viable for me.
I
15th.
Me
I
too.
can't do the 15th.
oh, okay.
14th,
Dana, 14th?
Yeah, I'm in.
I'm good.
Angela? No,
She's
you
not
can't.
in.
I don't think that works. Yeah. I've got a long stint away, so that's fine. I'm supportive of what you all decide.
So again, the December 2nd meeting, or the December 6th meeting, I'm not sure whether we're gonna have to move that and try to see if Preston can be here for that, but he has it's in conflict with something else he doesn't.
Okay.
So no,
So,
14th is at what time?
well, it would be
5 o'clock?
would be our
Yeah.
regular scheduled time.
Okay.
And I'll confirm all that, and have that out to everyone tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay, so this is the 14th at
5 o'clock?
5 PM. And this is, we're just gonna call this the Green Street Park Work Session.
Yeah.
Okay?
Good.
Okay, and then in December, if I can't get Preston on the 6th, we could do, I'm out of town that week, I won't be back, we could do the 20th. December 20th, or we could do another day, we could do the 19th, we could do,
When are you back?
I'm back on the 13th.
13th?
I hope you're going somewhere fun.
I'm going to Cancun,
I'm
Oh, good for you. All right.
I've never been there.
council the
Council's the 13th.
13th, and I'm out of here the 14th to
Okay.
New York City.
Of
So,
December?
And you're gone for,
Long time, 9 days.
okay,
So the 12th?
I'm not here.
Oh,
Oh, you're back the 13th.
Yeah.
oh.
And you leave the
But I
14th.
can see, again,
Well,
I can see if I can
We can do the
get
meeting without you.
Preston to do the 12th. If that's a date that works for the rest of you,
Which was, say that again?
the 12th, Tuesday, the 12th.
Tentatively, yes.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
I'm
what I
just gonna
was
see if
saying.
I can get that.
Do not
You around
cut
the
your
12th?
vacation short.
Angela?
Uh,
December,
yeah, I don't think so, but I might be able to call in Zoom.
okay.
Want to take my Starlink?
Preferably we'll get the 6th, I'll get coverage for the 6th, but, I don't.
Do you have one of those?
Chris is out of town.
Does it work? Well,
I'll talk to him.
it's expensive.
Sure.
SAB regular meeting. Okay, so that's the plan,
The 12th?
okay?
So this 6:30, you guys want to cap? Any more discussion on Green Street? Move on to November 2?
Yep.
I'd love to walk out of here by 5 after 7 at the latest.
Yeah, okay.
So Deb sent out the draft of this. Has everybody had a chance to read that in the SAB packet?
I loved it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I just
Yeah, you give the good preface because I think
shoot
it needs
this
a lot
out
of work.
there? So, this, draft, can you all see it?
Uh-huh.
Angela?
No,
Okay, let me just make sure I'm sharing this.
but I did read it.
Okay, so basically, I went and researched a bunch of communities in Colorado, more kind of our type of communities that had some sort of a net zero resolution. And what I did was I just provided that to Preston, and he pulled bits and pieces from these communities and put together this draft. So this draft is really the beginning of something that this committee will create to be the final. We're figuring is probably gonna take 3 meetings to get everything on here that we wanna have on here. This is just really a starting point. If nothing is written in stone, no dates, no language, it's just to show you what we're looking at, kind of trying to create. So again, this is a starting point, and this has been pulled from, like I said, from different communities. So during this time, Preston is going to plan on being at one of these meetings, as well as Kim Wheels and Kimberly, I can't think of her name, but Kimberly is someone who worked with the Energy Code. She was on the Energy Code board to develop that, and I believe you met her at Mountain Town 2030, JT. Anyway, she has agreed to help us draft this
Oh, great.
resolution, give any sort of recommendations, because she knows the code, she knows this whole process, she's been through it with other communities. So we have some good resources to help with this. So I think really what needs to happen now, in my opinion, I'm just gonna say, is put your ideas out there, what we should have on this, and then start working on it.
I would say go through line by line. If language affects you, or you think about it, make notes of that. If dates pop out that you want to lobby for, or in terms of timelines, if you want to get language, there's language in here that I like, even identifying San Miguel Power Association, whether they should be in there or shouldn't be in there, other organization, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, everybody put your minds to it and come up with, do that as your part of our collective homework.
The one thing that I will say, and that is something we need to be mindful of, is making sure that we are realistic in our dates. Like,
I think that's
Yeah.
gonna be a biggest part of our process, especially as per the original letter
What's your
was vague
definition
on.
of realistic? What do you mean by that?
achievable.
we can't, achieve,
And that's what I meant by sector,
yeah,
in terms of
yeah.
Well, we
food
need to
and, food
set
and,
intense goals.
food and waste. I want them to be aggressive and ambitious, but,
Yeah.
and that's what we all have to negotiate. And with that kind of guidance, Kimberly, who you're talking about, is from the other Lotus Energy. There's Kim Wheels at Lotus Energy. There's Kimberly at Lotus Energy Consulting, and they've actually written these incredible plans. I think they're in the Google Drive, but even for cohorts on the Front Range, multiple communities working together to leverage, to do things at economic scale in terms of photovoltaics or transportation. So she's really knowledgeable. That whole organization is amazing. If you want to dig into some of their reports and work they've done. And yeah, to Deb's point, Mountain Town 2030, their goal is to get everybody to commit to 2030. Not every community can. We learned at the conference very quickly that towns like us and the counties, Uray and San Miguel, we already have a cap. Communities in Idaho
We're way ahead.
don't even have a mechanism to begin writing a cap. They don't even have an ear in any of the legislature or their local councils to even begin to do anything sustainable, let alone access the billions of dollars from EPA. So there's a wide range. And so fortunately, and remember this as a resource, at Mountain Towns 2030, and all of us, John, Terry, we all had great side discussions with Chris Steinkamp and Luke Canton, and they're here to help us. And they said, if we're at a point, even in a workshop like with Kim and Kimberly, they said they would get in the car and drive down from Salt Lake and or from Park City and join us and help us in whatever way, because they instantly know where every other town is at, what worked for them and what didn't work for them at scale. And it helps them if they're actually have their eyes on our community and get a pulse of our own demographic and political will.
That's a great idea.
And the 2 or 3 meetings doesn't have to be 2 or 3 meetings. It could be 4. It could be whatever you guys need to get this done. The way you want it.
So, yeah.
Great
so-
work. That's awesome, Deb, Preston,
Awesome.
really nice.
Yeah, and thank you guys, because I mean, that was a collective draft that we wrote to get this into motion, presented it a couple of days before, not even 2 days, 1 day before council.
1 day, yeah.
Council got to review it and gave thumbs up, and then staff at Preston's direction, Deb, I say staff, but Deb.
Yeah,
Deb, put pen to paper and dug up all the different comps that are out here. So that's a heavy lift. And so thank you, Deb, and thank
Sure.
everybody else for all of your input in short order to be able to get something like this in motion. And it was phenomenally welcomed, not just as a feather in a cap, but as a very functional, how do you get shit done discussion at Mountain Town 2030. And in all likelihood, as a cohort, San Miguel and Uray County, Eco Action, Town of Ridgway, we're going to likely be able to next year at Jackson Hole, next October, be part of the conference and present about the processes and the sausage making that we're going through.
And I know that Kim, I had a conversation with her a couple of days ago, and she said that we are much farther along than any community in this area. And that will be probably the case is once this gets through and people will want to use the information that we pull together and find out how we did it and copy it.
That's the type of stuff would be super helpful to share with our community when we're talking about a sustainability park, for them to know how much work is going into this, what we're doing, what town's supporting, the work that we're advising, and that we're far ahead, because that's news to me.
Yeah.
In relative terms.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, for sure, but relative is good. I mean, yes,
We're not as
that's
far behind.
exactly, there you go.
But
Yeah.
but still, I mean,
Yeah.
still kudos.
Yeah, take the win.
Just to let you guys know, as I was taking an inventory of where we were a year ago and where we are now, I was even trying to put that into a elevator pitch, because even tomorrow morning, I'm sitting down with Ash Perkins and Catherine from Chamber to explain to them what this group is working on, not all of it, but and also just as in a soft touch way, encourage them to bake into their objectives as Chamber. And they've already, I don't know if you've looked on the website, but in terms of sustainable business, that's become a part of their fundamental goals in their new contract with town, but also to talk to them about incentives that they can be on the front end in terms of engaging with tourists, visitors, on ways to direct them either to community garden or to composting or using their own cups or buying a cup provided by Chamber where they get a
Bing bong boom.
10-20% discount. On
This is
stuff
something I
like
want
that.
to
So,
talk about, but not tonight because we're.
so yes, just try to bake it into every part of our fabric.
15 cents. Wow.
I think you should talk about it, Dana. Just give like your elevator spiel. You haven't
Okay,
had
I
much.
went
more
to the
time.
ball, the talk. These are ball cups.
Mhm.
And it was a guy from Savannah, Georgia. He was adorable. They no longer do plastic cups in the entire city. They buy these for 15 cents. You can get your logo, the town logo put on them. They sell them for $1. So the town should, this is a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, that's what they use at the River Festival.
Yeah, I was
and
gonna
we
say
that.
should-
We should do
And,
it forever, that we should no longer
all
buy plastic
festivals
cups.
in
Yes.
Ridgway should have aluminum.
Do you want to
cups.
keep one?
Right.
Remind you? Do you have a ball one?
So, yeah,
Ball? Yeah.
in those same veins, so I was gonna use that as, I mean, I'm having a general discussion on this.
I'm sorry, I know we have
Just
other
a
stuff.
general discussion with Chamber tomorrow and just all of us as spokespeople for SAB in all of the other realms, education, wherever else that you engage. I mean, let them know what we're doing and what we're thinking about.
I also talked to somebody on the school council or school board, and he's really interested in electric buses, and DOLA has a grant out right now through January, and he's gonna look into that. Just wanted to let you
Like
guys know
Graham
that
said, yeah.
also.
Super.
I should really give you guys a summary, everybody else's some,
So,
maybe Terry and I can get together,
Yeah.
Dana, and give a summation of what we did learn at Mountain Town 2030
yeah.
and where we're going. So.
I think that's a great idea.
With that, in regards to this resolution of 23 XX rated, where do we,
Does it need definitions?
in an
So-
appendix or,
So, that's
I don't
one
know.
thing, the one thing that,
good question.
when I first looked at this, because I don't have the background in this is in net zero. What is net zero? What is net
Correct.
zero, greenhouse gas emissions? What is that?
Right.
What is,
Yeah.
net zero energy,
So one thing
use? What is that?
right, I don't know where to put the definitions, but if you.
Yeah, we
if
could
you-
put those in, that would be in this,
If you-
whereas,
After that, whatever, if you want to say, and the definition of is, and then you can send that back to us and we can.
okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
identify what
and don't worry
definitions-
about where it's gonna go
Right.
on this, just
Okay.
what it's gonna say, and we'll, as staff who's done this a
Right.
bazillion times, will
Okay.
put it in there, and then it'll, of course, it'll go through all the iterations of you guys reviewing it.
Good. Yeah, it
So-
just seemed like it needed something.
As Deb said to me, when I asked her before the meeting started, she envisioned that this is gonna take us 3-4 meetings to really get it to
Yeah.
the point where we have it as a deliverable.
So you've got a council who's very on board with this, so
But
I think it's gonna take a lot of time to get it how you want it.
Sorry. On that note, do we want to move on to see how much we can knock out in the next 15 minutes
Sure.
in terms of,
Can I just take over for just a few minutes?
sure, absolutely,
Okay.
please do.
So I'm just gonna whip through this, so that we can.
Oh, yeah.
So the terms of office, which is item number 3. So per your authority and procedures, it says that the SAB shall be made up of not less than 3 members, not more than 7 members. So if you guys are interested in soliciting for one more person to reach the cap, then we just need to make a recommendation to council to do that.
Yes,
Be great.
So,
I say yes. I move that we recommend to council.
Yeah, and.
Yeah.
Dana's got a person on the school board who she thinks might be interested, and so
That'd
she's
be a
gonna
good
ask.
ally.
Yeah, he's the
mean-
one that's interested in the
so when
buses.
JT gets back, let's do that motion again, if you don't mind.
Okay.
Oh,
Oh, right, yeah.
And then we'll get that,
Put
wrap that
down
up.
one.
It'd be nice to have somebody in the school. board.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Give us input.
He's my
in other
tenant,
areas.
Brian. He's adorable.
What's his name?
I don't know his last name. He's my tenant,
So
but I don't know. his last name.
again, JT,
He's
Sorry, I couldn't
adorable.
listen.
no, it's
Really good
okay.
guy.
So,
Super smart.
so what I was saying is that we have the ability to have not less than 3 and not more than 7. So if you guys want to solicit for one more, then we can, to meet that gap, we just need to make a recommendation. So,
Kenny has a motion.
Kenny
I
made a
moved.
move that we recommend to get the 7th person.
Oh, to find a 7th.
Uh-huh,
I'm glad I
and-
came back when I did. I was also gonna see if it was possible that one of those could be a youth advisory person,
Right.
So.
or does it have to be a?
No, it really cannot, because the youth advisory person is already appointed to the youth advisory. We can have, I mean, sure we could, but let me just say this, it was like pulling teeth trying to get somebody on the youth advisory.
Those 2 that we have right now.
Yeah,
Okay.
so, it would be, and then that's our next topic. It would be nice if we could get the youth advisory, one of them to attend the
Uh-huh.
meetings. I mean, what are you guys thinking of as far as that? As
Sure.
what you're wanting to see from them?
Well, like, as per what I said earlier, I reached out to Valene, she reached out to that, the other woman, to find out if there is a core of kids, even though they don't have a group per se right now, that would be interested in environmental sustainable issues, to see if we could get somebody attending here, even to help generate more of an active whatever they want to pursue in the school system. So I was just trying to figure out if that's even viable.
I don't know that there's anything that says that they can't be on two committees or 2 boards.
I
But-
can't imagine that that's a sustainable thing for a high school person is to
Yeah,
have
I'm not
2
sure there, but-
meetings, but I don't think there's any reason that someone couldn't sit on our meetings
Exactly.
as like, and
Or
help
assist with
provide
our-
some input.
Yeah,
But I think that we should move forward with adding a person to the board and, I don't know, that's my opinion. And we should discuss it as a committee. What do people think about adding a youth person to formally? Because Dana had a suggestion that we add a board member of the school. And now JT has a suggestion we add so let's just go about this in terms of like a committee process and come up with a motion. I'm sorry if I'm frustrated, but I feel like we're spinning a bit.
Well, I already moved that
And a second.
we recommend to council to advertise for one more member. And I wasn't specific about the age of that or, if they're a, student or not. So I think one more member is what we need. And we'll see, we'll entertain applications at that point.
I know you're making a motion there, but to, I think, Angela's frustration, do we want to discuss, should we try to identify the type to fill that 7th, be it an adult or from the school board or a student? Or should we just go through the normal process of just getting a 7th person on here soliciting?
so
That there's that
with the
option.
board, we do have to advertise that.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it would be anybody who responds to
I think it
that.
has
that's
to
what I
be,
mean, without
There
you
having.
go.
this
I think it has to be
Solves
open
that
to the
problem.
public.
Process.
Yeah, the normal process.
Who chooses the member, the new member? Do we?
The board.
We do?
No, I'm sorry, the council.
The council.
They come in front,
So
just
Yeah.
like you guys
so
do.
we have nothing to say in this
Yeah.
matter at
Right.
all. Might as well just go forward.
That's democratic process.
Yeah,
It's a council. committee.
yeah, so it's not our issue.
Does that,
I second Kenny's motion.
Yeah.
Aye. Agree.
Aye.
I,
I'm obviously.
All right, and then the last agenda item is about the advisory board. So, if you guys want to invite the members of the advisory board, why not? I mean, I don't know what you're looking at for in that item. Somebody wanted that item on the agenda, so I'm not really sure what the,
I was reaching out to Valley to figure out if there's a way we can get on the radar of students and vice versa, that we can get on, we can get a pulse of what the students are doing and what they're not doing. And
what we're doing.
And to court a student in to become an observer, a participant, a stakeholder, something along those lines. I just don't even know what's happening in the high school, so I wanted to reach out and find out what that was.
Just something to that regard, you might ask Darlene if it could be a service hours that go, because the kids have to do service hours. And you might ask specifically if it could be promoted in that regard, that counts as service time for the students that they have to do.
She directed me, she's gonna coordinate a discussion with Jen Donovan, who has a better insight into all of that stuff. So that's where that was her final response at 6:05 p.m.
National
Great.
Honor Society has requirements for stuff like this.
Right.
And that might be a good fit.
I know that there was a time when the school, members of the staff would go to the school and talk to them about what they did. I mean, that might be an option of having the board go say, this is the kind of things that we do, and you're welcome to attend, participate, however you want to participate.
I'll throw that out to her. I mean, as
It's just
council, that idea has come up a dozen times and it's not been acted on.
So could we just leave this in your ballpark right now?
At least
Or-
just in terms of fact finding,
Right.
this Jennifer
Yeah.
Donovan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're certainly welcome, but yeah,
With all of the things that you guys just said, I'll bring those up
okay,
as part of the conversation.
that's good.
Yeah,
I moved, we approve the minutes.
I was gonna say that's.
Moving along.
We're almost. Oh, I second it.
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, malaise just.
Abstain.
Can I mention
Okay.
one other thing
I
super
wasn't here.
quickly? The Forest Service, do you guys know that the Forest Service is initiating solar arrays in Forest Service land? They've already gone through Colorado. They've earmarked 3 forests for solar arrays. Just, yeah,
That's cool.
just didn't know if you knew that.
Could they do it around here?
It's not in our area. I've got it.
It's a
Anyway, I can
multiple
talk to
use
that.
discussion.
Oh.
But that's never been one of the things that was considered.
Well, they've done one in Arizona already.
For the leasing, yeah. It's been,
Where in Arizona?
Deb Holland is the one that.
Yeah, Deb
enabled to
Holland's
push
working
this
on
through.
it. Yeah, there's
So-
articles on it.
So can we?
I'll send you guys the article.
Yeah.
I'd like to propose that we have a resolution that recommends to the town that they use aluminum cups in the summer festivals.
Yes, I'd like to second that.
Yeah, I'll third it.
I mean, I think.
Any-
That's a no-brainer.
It's a
Any
no-brainer.
town activity, not just
No brainer.
festivals.
And quite frankly,
Anything.
our town is not doing real well on that right now.
I agree.
And I think we need to.
He
if
said
we
it
can make
helped
that
at the dump because
recommendation,
because nobody's throwing them away.
Yeah.
It was just a win-win all around.
I mean, that would be under the umbrella of our path towards net zero.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I mean, specifically, isn't that ultimately the purchases are decided by you and Pam, isn't it?
Well, you can,
I think
As
it's
far as
more
for the festivals and stuff, yeah, I mean, we buy compostable cups.
So we propose
what
that
we-
you use aluminum.
well, they're
instead.
15 cents and you sell them for $1, you're gonna make money.
You don't have.
We don't
well, you
sell them.
just
They
you
part of the
can.
beer,
They won't
yeah.
sell
You just sell them as part of the beer.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
part of the beer.
Maybe sell them
Okay.
as part of when you sell the tickets.
Well, I mean, that's what they
That's
do. at the
whatever
river.
we can.
At the
Well, I mean,
river
why not
festival.
try to make
But
some
the
money off
buy
of
the
them?
tickets.
3,000 people.
They're only 15 cents a cup.
Yeah.
Transactions happen.
Put your logo on
And then
there,
you
it's
get your beer
awesome,
refilled.
sell them, people pay
It's just-
$1
just-
for one of
it's
those
just
So
cups.
mechanics.
I'm not
It's just-
sure that
it's
we
just-
need a
yeah,
resolution,
one
but I
price,
will,
that's all.
I will find
work
that
that
out.
That's up to them to figure that out. But that's the kind of stuff that should be baked into every decision.
Absolutely.
I mean, I don't see a reason not to.
So are we voting on this?
We're voting on this.
Okay,
Sure.
I,
I
Aye.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry, did you do that?
think I did.
Dana?
Dana, yeah. Thank you, Dave.
And Deb, does that
Speaking of logos, just, we had on an agenda item that we were gonna discuss a logo for the Sustainability Advisory Board, and Dana has drawn this logo a long time ago, over a year ago, and we still haven't put that on, we haven't got to that on the agenda. I think we had it on there and then we didn't have time and it didn't carry over. So I'd like to add that to either the next one or the following board meeting, that we discuss a logo, that we see Dana's logo again, and we discuss if we like it, we want to improve it, or we want to adopt another one. But I think we need one that could go on a cup like that with Ridgway's logo, but we just need a logo for our website, for everything.
Okay, I'll add that on to the December meeting.
I showed it to Terry and he really liked it, so that made me feel good.
can you,
Yeah, I'll take a picture. It's not, I just drew it really fast. It's not the final.
It could be digitized, it could be really tidied up, and it could be
make
really
so much
awesome.
better. Scribbled it out,
Sure.
so I could,
Yeah.
it could
Sure.
super dial it. Yeah, digitalized, exactly.
share it with us?
Yeah.
Then
I like it,
by
and I
December.
still like it after it's
Good.
all this time, but I don't know what you guys will think.
well, so on the agenda for the next meeting, for the December meeting?
December meeting, I'll put.
Okay.
Sure.
All right,
Thanks, Deb.
put it at the top so that we can,
And I'll send
Make
it
sure.
out to
Sure.
you guys so you can look at it. If you don't like it, then maybe somebody will have another idea. For the
Great.
December meeting.
so with that.
Happy
at
hunting.
6:56 PM. May I adjourn the November 1st meeting of the Ridgway Sustainability Advisory Board meeting?
Second.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
All right,
You just
Yeah.
did.
all right.
Vote on that one.
Smack a gavel.
All right, guys, thank
We
you.
actually
Hey.
Oy vey and on my way.
She's hunting.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Zoom worked great.
Stay warm.
She's with.
Yeah.
Brett.
Appreciate y'all. Yeah. Fred and Rooster.
God,
Red and Rooster.
you're going down the bunny hole. Oh.
I'm going down it. It's like pure channeling my inner redneck, big time.
It's okay, it's good to be that way.
See ya.
I love
You're
it.
from
Kill
West
with
Virginia.
kindness.
I resemble